In this video, let's learn how to use the aggregate function and the subtotal functions together in Microsoft Excel. And you can clearly see in our small data set that we have here, we have a small budget. In column A, we have the budget items. In column B, we have the budget amount. And in column C, we have the actual spent amount. And then in column D, we have our balance. Now, our interest is to calculate the subtotals for each individual category of items, and later on calculate the entire aggregate value for the entire budget. And I'm going to be showing you two methods to do this, okay? The first one is, let us use our subtotal function to come up with the aggregate values for each individual category items. So I'll come here and say equals, I open the subtotal function, okay? And in here, the subtotal function has a number of options that I can pick from. I'm interested in summing up things, so I'll go with option number 9 by double clicking, or I can just punch in here option 9, comma, and the reference. Of course, I'll give these 3 cells up here. I can close off the subtotal from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. There you go. I have my subtotal in here, and in just a moment, I'll show you why we need to use the subtotal instead of using the normal sum function. I'll drag this to the rest of the cells, and there you go. I can actually copy this formula, Control C on the keyboard, and also paste it here for category B items. And there you go. I can double click to check the range that is being used. That seems to be correct. I can now drag this formula to the rest of the cells. Okay. Now let's also copy this and also calculate the aggregate subtotal for category C items. I'll just Control V. This is picking from 3 cells up, but of course you can see that for category C we only have 2 items, so I'll reduce this range. I can now drag this formula to the sides. Okay. After calculating our subtotals for each individual category, now let us see how we can calculate the aggregate total or overall total for the entire budget in here. And we have a number of options, but let me show you only 2 of these options. I'll come here and say equals, and then I open the aggregate function, and in here inside the aggregate function I also have a number of options to choose from. I'll go with the option 9, which is summing up things, comma, and now I have the second argument inside the aggregate function that requires me to declare which fields do I need to ignore. I can ignore hidden rows, nested subtotal, and aggregate function. My interest is to use option 3. I'll ignore all hidden rows, error values, nested subtotal, and aggregate functions. Let me do that. Option 3, comma, and now I can give the array for these numbers. So I'll actually highlight this entire array and close the aggregate function from here, hit enter key on the keyboard. You can clearly see that this gives us the total overall amount for this entire budget. And the way how the aggregate function works is that it will ignore all these subtotals and only add up these numbers. But of course, if we had used the sum, let's try this and see, equals sum, and now I highlight this entire range like we did with the aggregate and close this one off and hit enter, you can see we get a different number just because even the subtotals are getting included. So whenever you want to exclude the subtotals, please use the aggregate function. But again, make sure that your subtotals up here are being delivered using the subtotal function. If you use the sum function here and in here to create your subtotals, the aggregate function will again not work in your favor. But again, we can come over to this number and divide this one by 2. This one will also give us the same number because now we are trying to eliminate the subtotals manually. We can drag these 2 formulas to the right, and there you go. But of course, if you'd like to master and learn more about these functions, join our free weekly Excel classes by clicking on the link that I've given in my bio. Click there, join our free WhatsApp community so that you can get weekly free Excel classes to learn these functions in depth.